57-yard touchdown run by the magical quarterback, Lamar Jackson.
Big Keith Trailer, look at him rumble.
Yes, welcome along. Utter Punts is back, a brand new season. You can tell it is too. This is take 38 of the intro. You wouldn't believe it. We are steaming into the new season like producer Andy at a 70s disco tribute night.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. Touchdown! No! No! 24-yard attempt. Oh, he hits the upright. It's no good. Derek Johnson, the all-time leading tackler in the history of the Chiefs. And he misses it. That's impossible. The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs.
Yes, we're back for the full season, keeping you bang up to date with everything as it happens. We will be previewing every TV game all season long and loads of other bits and pieces chucked in for giggles too. Usual crews here. First up, our resident Ginger Viking. Think Tormund's Giantsbane if he had any clue about lining up in a shotgun formation. You all right, Dave Keane?
Oh, I was, Liam. When we started doing this podcast, I was a nice, healthy, milk pallid white. And I've been here under these lights now, waiting for this to happen for so long.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, this is my fault. And you have got the skin tone that could get a suntan from the fridge. So you just stay there. Let's introduce the man with the shoulders of a Greek god and a head shinier than Zeus's helmet. It's our resident statistical genius, Dan Horton. You're right, Dan?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm glad that football's back because the off-season's rubbish.
Certainly is. I thought you were going to absolutely hammer me there for how long it's taken me to get this intro out of the way, but
it's fun of the week coming up.
Yeah, it's right at the end of the programme, as always, where we nominate our Utter Punt of the week. And considering there's been no football, it might just be me. New season starts right now. This is Utter Punt. Yes, welcome along. Very much looking forward to the new NFL season. As I've said, all of the gang is here, which is lovely to have you along. Now, Dan, how are you? First of all, before we get into topic one, before we launch into what we're going to do, how are you? How's your off season been?
No, it's been good. I've had nice break, couple of holidays. I've become engaged, which is very exciting.
To my sister.
To your sister, yeah, we'll be family soon. 2025 podcast. I will get married in the off season because I'm not selfish, and I don't want to sacrifice the podcast. So my stag do and wedding will be in the off season, buried in the off season, nowhere near the draft or anything. It'll be in the dead space between July and August. You'll all be pleased to know.
If he has a stag do, it will be a straight up miracle, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just tell you. Right. Again, before we launch into first topics, Dave, how's your off season been, mate? Are you okay?
I'm well. Well, I've got man flu, probably COVID, but people don't say COVID anymore. Things have changed, right? It's not fashionable no more. So I've got man flu.
And we'll leave those politics exactly where they are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the NFL podcast, Utter Punts. Look, we are proudly in association with Enzon Kit. Don't forget, Punts at checkout gives you 15% off if you head to enzonkit.co.uk. So first topic is the stuff that has stood out to you during the off-season. I'm going to let Dan go first on this one. What's been your favourite thing about the closed season, Dan?
Yeah, I get fascinated by when big trades go down, especially around the draft and draft picks. So because I love watching the sort of longevity of what happens with those draft picks over time. So this year, for example, you've got the Panthers have traded up to take Bryce Young. They've given the Bears a wide receiver and some draft picks. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that trade in the long run. So whether the Panthers overpaid, if they've got the perfect quarterback, they didn't. What do the Chicago Bears do with those picks? So a couple of years ago, the 49ers made a real splash trade to go up from 12 to 3 in the draft. And they gave the Dolphins a first-round pick in 21, 22, and 23, and a third-round pick in 2022 to move up to get Trey Lance. Now, at the time, Trey Lance hadn't thrown the ball that much in college, as Dave rightly pointed out. Very exciting talent and looked very exciting. Looked like he'd fit the Shanahan system really well. Hasn't. For one reason or another, injuries never quite showed it when he was on the field, and then has been injured quite a lot since, so never been able to really get into the groove. They've just simply recently traded him to the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th round pick. So in 2 years, they've turned 3 first-round picks and a 3rd round pick into a 4th round pick. Now, for most teams, that would be devastating. That would devastate their franchise for years. It would take them 10 years to recover from it. 49ers haven't blinked. They're still probably the favourite to win the NFC this year because they've got a slightly easier division. They've just signed Nick Bose to a massive contract. They've got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. They're still making moves and they're still an active franchise. And it comes down to what a good franchise looks like, a well-managed franchise looks like, and what a bad one looks like. The Dolphins, ultimately in that trade, have taken those picks from the 49ers. So they got, for Trey Lance, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. So the Dolphins have done quite well out of it as well. So who's the big winner in that trade? Dolphins, probably. Who's the big loser? I don't know. Cowboys? Maybe. Because it's not the 49ers, is it? Because they're fine. And they're fine because they drafted Brock Purdy in the 7th round and whatever. And it's gone from there. And then they've picked up Sam Darnold, who does look like a good fit in that offense because of his speed of thought. But watching this over 3 or 4 years has been fascinating. And these sort of moves in the draft always do sort of catch my eye, and it's always something I like to track over the years to come as trades happen and moves happen with those picks.
And this is why we call him the Statman Dan, because this is the kind of thing that keeps him interested. Keno, what's been your favourite thing about the off-season?
The Green Bay Packers finally no longer having a high-level quarterback by the name of Aaron Rodgers, who is now gone to the Jets. Been watching Hard Knocks, been seeing a lot of Packers fans be crying the fact that apparently he didn't lead in that way with the Packers. Well, I don't think he was appreciated as much by the Packers fans by the end. When you see a man being begged not to retire by young fans and saying, why would I want to when I'm so happy here? I imagine that brings a little bit of bile to the throat of every single Packers fan seeing it, and that gave me a great deal of pleasure. I want Aaron Rodgers to do well, not too well. I don't mind the Jets, but they're playing green. The 2 other teams are playing green, the Eagles and the Packers. It's hard to root for them, but you know. It's not the Vikings out of the playoffs last year. It was nice to see the friendly rivalry between the Jets and the Giants the other night, where somehow Rodgers managed to get into an argument with a man called Jihad Ward, which by names you can't get much more of I'd rather not be involved in an argument with you. Someone who defends the faith
his first name
in every
is
way, right?
Holy War. Yeah. I mean, it is.
Just drop that D and it really is bad. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great show. It's been the best series of Hard Knocks I can remember in a while. Some of the rookie stories, the wide receivers facing off against each other, even though they're best friends, that's great too. I've still got to watch the 5th episode. But yeah, Hard Knocks this off-season has been a real good watch. Fully recommend it.
Yeah, me too. I've watched all of it so far, and it's been really entertaining. I think, you know, some of the stuff that you don't see, some of the coaching stuff that you don't get to see, the absolute obsession with Goldmember still makes me absolutely howl every time I see it. It's absolutely brilliant.
The gold zone.
Yeah, the gold. It's not the red zone, it's the gold zone. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And to see the way that Aaron Rodgers is treated on the field and off the field by everybody, you know, you can only build that level of respect up over a career, really. And you know, I think maybe might just give him a little bit of a lease of life, and maybe we'll see the Jets come good, or certainly better than they were last season, and they weren't bad last season either. I think if I was going to pick something from... Go on, Keno, you've got your hand up already.
Just one important point to make as well. Mm-hmm. The Aaron Rodgers following in the footsteps of Brett Favre, going to the New York Jets, bringing along Zach Wilson as an heir apparent to the point where the Jets realise whether they want to stick with his quarterback that they pick next year, and giving Rodgers the trade that he wants to go and do the job that Favre couldn't do.
Maybe.
Just saying. Don't want to upset anybody, but I do want to upset you. Think long and hard about that, because if it happens.
And don't you forget that bandana is there for... It's not there for aesthetic reasons at all. It is there to keep the sweat out of his eyes, ladies and gentlemen. He's got to keep the sweat out of his eyes. I think if I was going to pick something from the off-season, it probably will have been Nick Bosa's trade. I think... putting a defensive player on the biggest, not the trade, the new deal that he's got, the biggest deal for a defensive player ever. And I just think that probably sets a marker to how we're going to see defenses treated in the NFL in the years to come. It's obvious they're being prioritised. It's obvious that these guys are realising that they can make a big difference on the defensive side of the ball, and it's going to be really interesting to see what that opens up coming further down the track, I think.
There's always one of these contracts that starts the ball rolling. So with quarterbacks, it was sort of Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray got our contract. Then every other quarterback that was due sort of took the Kyler Murray contract to their owners and went, pay up. So Nick Bose has signed, but Chris Jones is who basically I single-handedly almost got the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Really, in that game against Cincinnati, he was incredible in that run, and he's been good for them for a year. He's out with them, and he's not playing because he's basically on. He's self-excluded himself, so he's being fined. He's got a contract due. He's entitled to similar, and the big one then, Micah Parsons next year at the Cowboys, who I think they're making cap room for because he will get more again. So it'll just, one of these goes in and then the rest follow. And again, another thing I like to watch is the domino effect of those contracts come on time. No surprise if Chris Jones signs this week for a contract very similar to Nick Bosa, and then the contract that those two have will be set in stone for the Parsons one to just slightly increase it next year.
Going to be interesting. Look, we've got a game. Or Dave's come up with something. I say Dave. It was an idea that Dan had that Dave then sort of went, hang on a sec.
Nix it.
Yeah, he stole it and then moulded it into something. Yeah. So credit where it's due. Dan's idea helped to be moulded by Dave and then, I hope, commercialised by me and producer Andy. That's what I'm hoping. All right. But we're going to play it. And we're going to see whether we can get it off the ground, and we're going to hope that you enjoy it. It's going to allow us to have a look at a few teams as we go through the podcast and help us preview the new season a little bit. Dave, do you want to explain what the rules are here?
Yeah, go on. I'll give it a go. If I can't explain it to you guys, then our listeners aren't probably going to understand it either. So
Factually accurate.
Do tell me if you don't get this. Right, basically what we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of NFL stock market. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the list that the teams finished in last season from 1 to 32, with the worst team being at 1 and the highest team being at 32. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. Those amongst you who know this kind of thing will be fully aware of the fact that would be the original draft order before anything went on, such as draft pick trades or in the example of the Dolphins this year, just losing the pick outright for attempting to tamper with Tom Brady, current owner of Birmingham City Football Club. So just to bring us back to the point.
How did you not get that into the intro, by the way?
Squeezed that right in, didn't he?
I had to. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah.
Well-known
regular listener of Utter Punts, Tom Brady.
He might be now, he's in Birmingham. He might be listening to things with a Brummie accent on it. You never know. But so basically it's going to be in the order 1 to 32. So the Kansas City Chiefs are currently worth 32 points. The Chicago Bears, who have the number 1 overall pick before they traded away to the Panthers, have got 1 point. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a snake draft where we're going to pick teams one at a time. And we're going to try and pick the teams who we think are going to climb that ladder the most. All right? So we're going to pick 3 teams apiece. We're going to pick 3 teams apiece in a snake draft. Back and forth, and then with the person who goes last gets 2 picks in a row there. Or did we say we were going to do it linear? I think we'll do it linear, actually. Should we do it linear?
We're doing it linear because I lost everything that we competed in last year, and we want to give me the most amount of chance of actually winning something.
There was a reason why we went
I'm picking first, yeah.
And we're going to pick a faller, right?
And we're going to pick a faller, which in stock market parlance is the short sell, right? So who we think the value of is going to fall. So if, for example, we thought that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to go from first to worst, if that were to happen, then we would get 32 points for that short sell. But also vice versa, if we thought that the Chicago Bears were going to go from worst to best, then we'd get 32 points for that as well, because effectively you bank the number of points based on the finishing position for everybody, apart from where we're picking the team that we think is going to fall, and then you bank the number of points for they fall.
Really simply, if you finish 5 positions higher at the end of this season coming than you did last season, it's worth 5 points. If you finish 5 positions lower and you've picked the short sell, it's worth 5 points. It's that simple. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
We think it's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to give us the opportunity here to try and pick out why we're choosing the teams that we're choosing. I say we, but we're going to choose them, and then these two are going to explain why we've picked who we've picked, because that's exactly why you're here.
That would be a good reason.
So
you're going to pick a team at random, Liam, and then get us to come up with a reason why it was a good idea.
no,
I'm
I'm going to try. I'm going to try and pick a team that but I'm going to let you explain why I've done that. The first one's going to be really, really easy. Should we start the draft? Shall we?
Let's go.
Put ourselves on the clock.
I think we should start the draft.
Liam Bradford on the
Can we
clock.
get some kind of countdown from our producer when this is going out?
No,
Away,
absolutely
mate.
not.
You'd get nothing off him.
Also, don't forget the producer isn't here. I'm here, and I don't want to be working until midnight. So no countdown.
You can't even do like a
No
with your
countdown.
mouth.
No, and the longer you keep going, the less chance you're going to get of getting it. So
Okay, fine. Carry
good. Right, I'm going to go first. Then I'm going to pick the Bears. Now,
well.
I have to say.
They are your team.
Yeah, no, there was a little bit of head versus heart here, where I didn't want to have the piss taken out of me for the entire season, and therefore wasn't going to take the Bears, who finished with a single point last season, because I didn't want to have the piss ripped out of me all season. But then there was that little bit of me that goes, yeah, but you're competitive and you need to try and find a way of making some points. And this seems like a really legitimate way of doing that, because surely they can't be the same again. And if they are, you haven't lost anything.
Yeah, makes sense. Mathematical sense. You've got no chance of it being a negative score, certainly. So it makes sense to be the first pick. And they should be better, right? I mean, they've got a much easier division. The Vikings are terrible. The Vikings are terrible. Aaron Rodgers out the division. So that division is up for grabs. I think the Vikings will probably win it. But it'll be closer, won't it? And the Bears, what do they need to get? 5-6 wins? They'll probably move to they move 10 spots. I mean, it's a big move, and I think they're the team most likely to move. They look sharp. They've made some good move. DJ Moore coming in that trade for the number one pick is an outstanding move. It gives Fields a genuine number one wide receiver, and even in the offseason, which generally doesn't mean anything, you can see that there's chemistry between them two, and that looks good. And that'll help Fields. And the way Fields finished last year before he got hurt was spectacular. So I think Arrow up on the Bears, certainly.
Good.
Easy division.
Yeah. Who was picking second?
Dan.
Dan was picking second.
Yeah, I'm going to go for an up. I'm going to go the Falcons. So the Falcons were number 8 last year. They were terrible. But I think this year the Falcons have got a shot, certainly a shot at making the playoffs. There's no Tom Brady in that division anymore. That division in the South looks winnable. They're going to approach this in a very different way to most teams. They're going to run the ball. They've drafted Bijan Robinson, who has his own mustard, and is one of the rare calibers to come out, probably since Barkley, where a real difference-making running back, a generational running back. They've already got Cordell Patterson. They already had, last year, Tyler Algier, who's broke their rookie rushing record. He's still on the roster. So they've got 3 incredible running backs. They've got a quarterback that can run the ball. They've got Kyle Pitts and Drake London. They've got a really strong offensive line that loves running the ball. They're going to maul teams this year. And that NFC South, as much as there's a bit of firepower at the Saints, is weak. The defenses in that division are terrible. And they get to play them 5 times. They've got one of the easiest strength of schedules in the league because they play in the NFC South. So for me, I think the Falcons win the NFC South. I think they make the playoffs probably as a 4th seed, and that bumps them up probably 20 spaces. Wow,
that's a good take. Dave, what do you make of that decision from Dan?
I loved it. He didn't take anyone I wanted.
Okay, good. All right, so that lines you up for your pick then. Who are you going with?
I'm going to take the team which last year were one of the Super Bowl favourites pre-season and ended up finishing 5th, worst in the entire league. I'm going to take the Broncos, where I think Sean Payton's going to come in and make an awful big difference with Russell Wilson. I think that there's been a complete culture change there. You know that I'm into the psychology of the situation. I think they all know that Sean Payton's way is the only way they're going to carry on having their jobs. Apparently Russell Wilson is no longer allowed his office on site with him. He actually has to speak to the other players. I get the distinct impression that Sean Payton is basically showing him how to build relationships within the dressing room. And yeah, for me, they have every chance of improving hugely. I can see them winning their division. I can see them making the playoffs. I think it was just an aberration that they finished 5th last year. So I'm very happy to be able to take
These
the
are
Broncos.
massive statements. Dan, sort him out, would you?
In the division with the Chiefs and the Chargers. I think I agreed at the start of the offseason. When Sean Payton came in, I thought they're in for a real bump. But they've got the same problem they had last year, and they've been decimated with injuries again in the offseason. Their wide receiver room that looks like a strength with, I think, it's TJ Hamlin and whatever. But they're all injured again. They're all out for the season again. Jerry Jeudy's not going to start the season, probably the first 4 games. So he's got no one to throw the ball to again.
He's got Sean Payton.
He's got Sean Payton. Sean Payton, in the last 2 years at the Saints, couldn't get a winning record.
No, he couldn't. But the big difference is he's coming after Nathaniel Hackett. Now, Nathaniel Hackett, seen him on Hard Knocks. What a guy. Gold member zone, whatever you want to call it, mate. But it didn't show any kind of... At least so far in my show, I haven't seen anybody where I thought they have the ruthlessness required to be a head coach. Sean Payton's one of the nastiest men on the planet. He'll be fine. I honestly think the Broncos is just going to go from strength to strength this year. I'm fully aware of who's in their division. I'm worried for them. I think that there's more reasons as to why the Broncos should have been good last year and weren't than just the wide receivers being injured.
So I think their defense, Dave, could be stellar. I think they've got a really young defense, Patrick. Justin Simmons on the backfield, I think he's a really good safety, and they've got some good players up front. So they could be a really good defense. I mean, they'll need to be. They play the Chiefs twice, the Chargers twice, and they've got a really tough schedule because they're in the AFC West. But
I've just figured it out.
Good luck to him.
I've just figured it out. Dave's trying to get some more free merch sent from Enzon Kit, isn't it?
Yeah, this is why you're the host.
So Renee from Enzon Kit is a massive Denver Broncos fan, and what you're trying to do is, you see, he's already got the merch. He's wearing all the merch. I see what you're doing here. You don't want to have to use Punts at checkout. You're hoping that Renee's going to send you some more free stuff.
Oh, why wouldn't she? I'm lovely.
All right, a wrap up of round 1 of this stock market draft then. I picked the Bears, Dan's gone with the Falcons, Dave's gone with the Broncos, all of which to get better over the course of the season. In we go to round 2, pick number 4 overall. It's me to go. I'm going to take a short sell as my second pick, and I'm going to take the Bucks.
Oh, are you?
I am. Yeah. And I'm going to take the Buccaneers because no Tom Brady. And I think any team that loses Tom Brady will automatically take a step backwards, or at least take a little bit of time to reorganise themselves to whatever new quarterback they decide that they're going to play with. So, yeah, I mean, you two, Dan's crossed it off the list, so I'm guessing that Dan had the Bucks as a potential pick here.
Well, I've just said I think the Falcons and the Saints are by far their favourites in that division now, which means the Bucks won't win their division and make the playoffs, which means they're definitely up for a drop. They won't make the playoffs. They're going to drop 6-7 spots at least. So it's a great shout, and you're right. Moving on from Tom Brady has been difficult even for Bill Belichick, hasn't it? So if it's difficult for him, it's likely to be difficult for Todd Bowles, who's clearly a dead man walking. They've still got some good players there, but it doesn't seem like a team that's
They've
together.
got a hell of a defence.
They've still got Godwin, still got Evans, they've got Rashad White in the backfield. They've got some good players.
Evans is talking about not playing unless they give him a new contract before the game.
He's on the trade radar, I think. For someone like the Giants, maybe I could see Mike Evans ended up somewhere. Good returner. But Ryan, did you hear this story about Ryan Jensen a couple of weeks ago? The centre.
Yeah, injured for the season again.
Tell me. Dave's twin brother, Ryan Jensen. Great centre, been in the league many years. He was injured a lot last year. Came back from injury to play in the playoff game to protect Brady.
Shouldn't have done.
And shouldn't have done. So basically took injections of
African
umbilical cords from stem cell tumours. And it turns out he's goosed, so he's retired from the game. So that's on that line is a massive loss to them. And I
he's
think
retired. I just thought he was on injured reserve for the season. I didn't realise it actually.
I think the word is I don't think he'll come back, and he's not going to come back into a team that's 1-10, is he?
No.
So a real shame, because a real character of the game. He was always the person in the bottom of the scrum pinching people around Jens. He was great, really good fun to watch. So a shout out to him. He was a good player, but they look like in stink mode really. And ultimately, are they going to be trying to win towards the end of the season? Or are they going to be trying to lose to get a better pick because they need a quarterback? And there's some good quarterbacks coming next year. So
absolutely right. So what we're saying is that I've made a really good decision in taking the Bucks as a short sell. Dan, your second pick.
Okay, I'm going to go for the Lions as an up.
Okay.
I think they nearly made the playoffs last year, and I'm looking. I've got a few on my list. I'm not going to read it out because Dave will nick them. But I I like the Lions. I think they finished 8 out of 10 last year, 9 out of 10. They won a game against the Packers to eliminate the Packers in the last game of the season, if you remember, which put the Seahawks into the playoffs. They finished like a train. They had real problems on defense, but they've splashed and brought a lot of players in. CJ Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles, amongst other players. Byron Burns and they've drafted as a safety. He looks a real good player. And they've got a really good defensive line. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the league, I'm sure. Probably behind the Eagles, probably the best offensive and defensive lines in the league. And that's where it's won. And if you protect Jared Goff, he will find people. And I think the Lions will win that division. I think the Lions will therefore make the playoffs. And if they improve that far, they could shock people. I think they could shock the Chiefs tonight, I'll be honest, with the injuries that the Chiefs have got. It just depends on how long those new players in the secondary take to settle in. What it won't take time to settle in is it's the same offense. It's very much the same scheme. It's the same offensive coordinator. So they should be comfortable. They've got players. They've brought in players. They've overdrafted Jamar Gibbs. He shouldn't have gone at number 12, I don't think. But he is going to be lights out for them. He is going to make a real impact. He could make that impact tonight against the Chiefs team, the secondary that's banged up specifically. So watch out for Jamar Gibbs.
2 touchdowns tonight, I think.
Yeah, he's a star.
We will definitely touch on tonight a little bit later.
For me, the Lions win the division. The Lions win the NFC North because they're primed to, and I think they will. And actually, I kind of want them to because Dan Campbell's a legend, and they're great to watch, and they play great football.
Yeah.
So Lions arrow up for me.
MCDC is one of the great characters of the NFL, and it would just be nice for him to achieve something.
I think if he doesn't, he's out of a job.
Yeah.
You don't make it 3 years without
I
that.
disagree. The Lions are going to Lions because the Lions are the Lions. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Pick him to go down.
Go on then.
So my second pick, I'm picking the team to go up again.
Okay.
And this time it's quite close to the heart of Dan here.
Don't do it.
I'm taking the Cleveland Browns to go shooting back up and potentially even, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but potentially shocking some of the better teams in the NFL. It's the second year of Watson. I watched him last year. I knew he was awful. I watched him in preseason. He couldn't hit a throw. He actually looks like a functional quarterback again. They have some decent wide receivers around him. I think Allen Robinson's there. And the big thing for the Browns is I do believe they've got the best defensive end in the entire league in Myles Garrett by a long, long way. I don't think it's even close. I'd rather have him than any of the Bose brothers or anybody else. Myles Garrett is by far the most talented, the most competitive. He's just buried on a Browns team that hasn't had any decent quarterback play and has never been able to stop a rush due to a complete lack of defensive tackle, nose tackle in the middle. They fixed that this offseason. They signed Tomlinson from the Vikings, Dalvin Tomlinson, and I honestly think that is going to unleash Myles Garrett on the quarterbacks in that division. I expect injuries for Burrow. I expect injuries for Lamar. I do, for both. And yeah, I honestly can see the Browns and the Steelers making their way to the playoff from that division this year. It's going to be great.
Oh, these are some bold predictions coming from the ginger one. I still think Cincinnati will be there and thereabouts by the end of the season.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love Joe Burrow, but he's getting injured this year. It's his turn.
Okay. Right, just a quick...
I think he's injured now.
Yeah.
So it's not bold shout at that.
Yeah. It's a bit easy, isn't it? Yeah. Let's recap.
Lamar's Lamar, right? We know he'll get injured by around game 9 or 10.
Don't go there. Signed his contract now, happy boy.
Wearing the number 8 here. You can see it on this shoulder. Right, recap of the second round then. I went with the Bucks to get worse
Great
as
shout
a short sell.
Yeah, great job so
Dan and
far.
Dave picked the Lions and the Browns, in accordance with those picks. Right, which brings us on to the 7th pick overall and the first pick of the third round of this draft, and it's me again. Now, I have been watching Good Morning Football all week, and they've just had their predictions week, all right? And their predictions week is basically they do Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, blah, 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 blah. They pick them all out. And the team that kept appearing on this, time and time again, were the New Orleans Saints. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember what they said in any of those topics other than the Saints were in an awful lot of them. Therefore, I'm going to pick the Saints to get better as a completely blind pick.
It's a great pick.
Okay.
It's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a great pick. That's what we want to hear.
I had them second behind the Falcons only because they
Did you?
finished slightly higher than the Falcons last year. So the Falcons were the better value. because one of those two is winning that division this year and going into the playoffs. The Saints have signed Derek Carr, so they actually brought a functional quarterback in. Although Derek Carr is rubbish, he's certainly better than what they've had.
He's functional,
and his weaponry around him. So Michael Thomas is back from injured, looking well. Chris Olave looked like the best rookie in the class last year. You've got Raheem Shaheed, who played well on the outside last year. You've got Juwan Johnson. They've signed Jamal Williams, who was leading touchdown scorer in the rushing last year, to make way for Alvin Kamara to come in after his 3-game suspension. So he's coming back and he looks fully healthy and sharp. The Saints look a good team. The coach is terrible. Dennis Allen is their coach, and they love him for some reason, and they keep trying to find ways to keep him in the job. But for me, he's absolutely terrible, and he's the reason they'll falter to the Falcons, who'll just run over him.
Well, look,
I'll be mid. I'll finish 9-8.
Classic. What's his name? Sean. What's he? Oh, God.
Sean Payton.
A classic Sean Payton season, 9-8.
Wait, as long as it's better than last season, we don't care. Right?
It's more Darren Carr. Like Darren Carr, he's a very serviceable quarterback. Yeah, Derek's brother. So yeah, you're quite right. But yeah, just having Carr there. He's an upgrade on last year. Was it Jameson last year?
James Winston, and then obviously a mix of Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton, wasn't it?
Yeah. And everybody was talking about the fact they were going to win that division and go to the playoffs. It never looked that way to me.
They should have won that division.
It doesn't now, to be honest. I think they're overrated again, but I understand why you've picked them. A lot of people are talking about them.
Fair enough. Look, we are going to move this on because it's 27 degrees in this back room and the lights are on and I am melting. Right, third pick for Dan.
Arrow up, and I'm going to go to the AFC North. I'm going to go against Dave's Browns, and I'm going to say it's the Steelers. They absolutely terrify me this year.
How painful is this for you to be admitting on this podcast?
I just got a bit of a sort of demigod and sugar down the show. I'm not even saying it, but they look scary this year. If they can stay healthy. I mean, Mike Tomlin, we talked a lot about it last year. He's never had a losing season. Last year, they were awful. They didn't have TJ Watt for 10 games. I think
you enjoyed that greatly as well, didn't you?
Yeah,
how bad they were.
They were bad. Them and the Patriots were bad. They got eliminated in the same day as well, which is fantastic. But this year, some of the players they brought. If TJ Watt can stay healthy, they've still got Cam Jordan on the defensive line. They've got Alex Highsmith. They've signed. He's a really good player. Nick Herzig, the rookie pass rusher they've got. So they're going to menace people up front. Their back end looks safe now. I think Patrick Peterson is a great signing. I think anywhere else he fades. I think going to the Steelers, they're going to get a real turn out of him. With Minkah Fitzpatrick there,
they'll play to his strengths and let him lead. 100%, he's going to be great for them.
And with a player like Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety, they can do that with Patrick Peterson because he will be so disciplined. Joey Porter Jr. looks like a good draft pick at cornerback, and that's just the defense. On offense, Kenny Pickett came out in the offseason. The offseason means nothing except if we look at accuracy point of view and a comfort point of view. They had 5 drives, the first team offense, all 5 were touchdowns. He's chemistry with George Pickens. Dave's pick for George Pickens, it was a great pick, and he looks mustard this year. He's in for a big leap. They've got Deontay Johnson on the other side. They've got 2 good tight ends. They've got 2 running backs, which I think in the end Jalen Warren will overtake Najee Harris for that job because I think Warren just looks so explosive. It reminds me a bit of the Pollard-Zeke thing a couple of years ago where Pollard was inevitably going to take the job. The Steelers will win the AFC North this year, and I think they could go all the way in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
So I'm picking them because they're ranked 17th at the minute.
I shouldn't have mentioned them when I said I expected a couple of teams to rise. If I remember you to give them a chance, well done. I've rated them. That's what you want to do. Get in the head.
Go on then, third pick, Dave.
Okay. Right, okay, so I'm going to do my last pick that I think is going to get better before I move on to the spicier bits. Yeah. I'm going to go with the Titans. I think their division is still open to be won. I know the Jags did well last year, but I did think the Titans should have done better than they did. I think they missed a proper wide receiver threat on the boundary to help them to open up a run game. I think they've got exactly that now with Nuke Hopkins. I think it's probably Stafford's last season unless he actually gets anything good going there. And They've actually had a full off-season with an absolutely mental GM. They had John Robinson, who did think it was a good idea to trade away AJ Brown. And they've got Ron Carthon now, who actually seems to be a very level-headed, very intelligent man who seems to be making smart decisions. I think Jeffrey Simmons in the middle, I don't think there's a better three-tech in the league. I think he's absolutely brilliant, apart from maybe Aaron Donald, but I don't know whether or not that's just because he was so good for so long. I think if I had to take one of them now, we probably would be Simmons because he'll be good for longer. But yeah, I think the Titans, they're going to go raging back up. And I do think that they were massively underperforming last season. So the Tennessee Titans to give the Jags a push for that division, and I reckon they'll take the division as well.
I mean, they made us a lot of money last year, if you remember. There's a few games where they were road underdogs and we lumped it on them because they were never respected. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've gone right off them. I think
I understand why.
I think they're too old. I don't think they can really hurt people. And that division now looks like it's the Jaguars to lose. And I can't see a second team coming out of that division. So I actually had the Titans on the down just instantly.
Really? Did you see where I finished?
Can we
last
please
year,
get head on that?
No, I've got a better one to go down with. But
no, do it. They can only drop 10 spots. Go on, take the Titans to go down.
It's a bold shout, isn't it? But I think because they definitely need a quarterback, right? So they're going to be
they will do. What they have got is Malik Willis performing better this offseason than he did last. I reckon that he might not get dropped immediately if he did come into play a game this year. But they also took Will Levis, who was a quarterback the Vikings were connected with before the draft. And we didn't take him. They did. And it looks like he's now behind Willis on the depth chart there, which is either very good news for Willis or really, really bad news for Levis, depending on your perspective.
I think that kind of sums up my view of them. I don't think they've done enough, particularly this off-season, to strengthen and get better. And I think they'll end up quite quickly in the mode of, let's break this down. I can see Tannehill getting traded. I can see Henry getting traded. So fair play. That AFC South's always good to watch because it's terrible, isn't it? So they all just beat each other and lose to everybody else. Generally.
Fair enough.
There's a from the AFC South.
Right, we've got the spiciest bit to come here on Utter Punts. And whilst we're thinking about how spicy that's going to be, you're going to listen to this. Utter Punts is proudly sponsored by one of the best kit suppliers out there, Enzon Kit. Enzon is a transatlantic company whose mission is to make finding kit a little bit easier and a little bit more affordable so you can represent your favourite American sports teams. Whether you're looking for NFL, college football, baseball, hockey or basketball memorabilia, Enzon's got you covered. With sizes from newborn up to 3XL, anyone can find something at enzonkit.co.uk. And one of the things that we love is that they have a whole range of retro and pre-loved gear so you can rock your vintage style while supporting your team. So why not head to enzonkit.co.uk and find yourself a bargain. And because you listen to Utter Punts, you can have a 15% discount at checkout when you use the code PUNTS. enzonkit.co.uk, the place to go for your American sports kit. Right then, recap of the third round of our draw. I went with the Saints as an up. Dan went with the Steelers as a better, and Dave went up arrow for the Titans. So that means that we have got 3 picks left. You've both got to pick your short sell, and I've got one final team that's going to get better to be picked, and I'm going first, and then you two can battle it out. All right. They've got a brand new logo. It's all been fresh and shiny. Everything looks like it might be on the up at the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to take the Commanders based entirely off the fact that they've rebranded themselves properly this year rather than waiting until the last possible second, and maybe that'll be reflected off the field as well as on it.
If they're still called the Commanders at the end of the season, because they might change the name again. It's a great shout. It all depends on the quarterback, doesn't it? We talked about Sam Howell last year. I said he was someone I was looking out for because he should have been drafted much higher. Had a bad final year in college, came in and he dazzled in the last game he played for them. And in the off-season, he's dazzled them again, and to much point where Ron Rivera said, I wish I'd known this earlier. Well, I mean, he has had him for 2 years. He probably should have known more, shouldn't he? They look electric to me, the Commanders. They've got a really good defence. They've got a really good run game. They've got Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson on the outside. Sam Howell can run with the ball as well as throw it, and he's aggressive. And I had them on my list. I think they're a great shout to make the playoffs.
You know it's serious when all three of the punts have got pens in their hand. Dave is currently sucking on a Sharpie. Dan is twiddling his pen, and I've got my fountain pen in my hand, taking notes about what's going on. So I've taken the Commanders. That leaves 2 picks. Dan, you're going next. It is your short sell. It's the one that you think is going to be worse off this season. I've just looked at your piece of paper and I cannot wait. Well, take it away, Dan Horton.
I was tempted to do the Chiefs, right? Because the Chiefs, as with the theory of the Bears, the Chiefs can get the only place if they win it again, it's 0 points, right? And I think the Chargers will win the division, so I think the Chiefs might end up in the wild card, which already drops them probably 6-7 spots. If they get knocked out of there, they're probably 10 spots down. However, there's 2 teams last year that were talked about as overhyped. 2 teams, and unfortunately that you guys support both of them, right? It's not personal, but the Vikings 13-3 record was blag. It was nonsense, and historically nonsense. I mean, it was historically the close that it was. I think IPA them as a sort of 6-10 team, and it was awful. And the Giants were overhyped. Everyone said the Giants had no right to be where they were. So it's one of those 2 teams because they finished 24-26. So one of them, I don't think either will make the playoffs. I definitely think one won't. So I'm going to pick the Vikings as my down.
I'm so happy. Well done, mate.
Because they cannot possibly finish as the 2nd seed in the NFC again. And I think the Giants actually were, I think they were under-talked, but I think they were brilliantly coached. I think they've strengthened where they needed to strengthen. I think they look like a really good team. I think Daniel Jones could make an advancement. Yeah, I think Daniel Jones might step up. You know, look at the year 2 to 3 with the Dayball with his previous quarterbacks, Josh Allen. They definitely unlocked something with Daniel Jones last year, and if that continues, and even if he gets to the same level he played last year, they will win games because they've got a fairly straightforward schedule. So for me, the Giants will be okay. I don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Cowboys and the Eagles in that division, and I even think the Commanders might get past them. But I think the Vikings are in for a much bigger fall because I think the Vikings are terrible. I think their quarterback is almost on the verge of disgrace. They start off with a few primetime games, which they can't win because he doesn't. So they'll be 0-3 or something. I think the Lions are on the up, the Bears are on the up, the Packers will be better than everyone makes out because they have got a decent quarterback. So for me, the Vikings are black and they'll drop like a rock.
He's twitching. I've got to let him come in. Go on, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Oh, hello, mate. Dan, did you not watch Quarterback? Because I thought people watched Quarterback and then decided, even though it was clearly a propaganda show made by his own publicity agents, that Kirk Cousins is in fact the true leader among men, despite displaying no leadership qualities whatsoever.
That's not what came out of Quarterback for me, by the way.
Had Kirk Cousins been on Quarterback with any other quarterback other than Patrick Mahomes, he may have come across all right. But unfortunately, they kept coming from him being an absolute lemon in one side.
Not even close.
The greatest sportsman in history.
So the Vikings are never going to win anything meaningful with Kirk Cousins. That's a known since before we signed him from Washington Redskins. If you ask Mike Zimmer, and personally I thought Mike Zimmer was bang on with that assessment. I wish Kirk well. I hope he has a happy life. He's not a bad fella, but he's not going to win anything.
I don't know. Somebody made the decision to not tell him that moustache looks horrendous.
We'll come to that in a minute.
I mean, this yet. Anyway, it's fine. Like, I do wish him well. He seems like a lovely enough dude, but he's not got the spark to take a group of people who have become disillusioned by the circumstances of what is going. He hasn't got the spark to turn that around. He'll need someone else to do that for him. If the Vikings do anything like that, it'll probably come from the likes of Justin Jefferson, who does strike me as someone who maybe does have a little bit more leadership qualities about him. But that's beside the point. I'm delighted you picked them.
Just before you go there, what happens if Kirk Cousins turns up this season?
Well, he only turns up sometimes.
Too many primetime games.
I'm pretty sure
Too many primetime games, you reckon?
Well, I think he basically has the same work ethic as a French farmer who will turn up when he feels like it.
Sacre bleu.
Where are they week 1, Dave? Where are they week 1?
Burn anything down.
Who are the Vikings playing week 1? I've not got it.
We're playing for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A team that, like,
so
if we can't beat them, it might be right.
Well, then they've got the Eagles next Thursday night, haven't they?
Yeah, 1-1.
Eagles, yeah.
We'll get onto that. We'll get onto that now. If you like.
No. You got to make your pick. Come on.
I know.
All right.
So my pick for the short sell are the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow. Wow, he's gone massive.
Never back against the
Basically, they've lost both their DC and their OC. Everyone seems to think that's not going to be a problem. They brought in Brian Johnson, and I'm pretty sure that Sirianni just thought he was getting Ben Johnson from the Lions. It's not the same guy, mate. He's got Sean Desai, who was pretty much fourth choice for our DC role. We ended up getting Brian Flores. I'm happy with that. The quarterback has already shown himself to be injury prone. He has a style which attracts hits. I'm hoping that happens. They spent an awful lot of money just keeping older players on the roster. The thing that annoyed me was the draft, because they got the best player in the draft.
Yeah, they did.
But I'm hoping they cut that out somehow. Quite frankly, Philadelphia, it's almost like people are trying to hand you a Super Bowl on the plate. But unfortunately, there's something about you as a city, which means that you did get it once, but hopefully you don't get it again. I honestly think that anyone of quality, if the Eagles won it again, there'd be some kind of earthquake caused by the Hernigan graves. So, what I will say, I need to give them something positive, because I might have been a little bit negative there. I got made to rewatch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia from the bit where Danny DeVito comes in. He carries that. He's brilliant. But I'd like to point out he's from New Jersey and a Giants fan, but he does pretend to support you in the playoffs, because he's probably got no choice. You'd kill him if he didn't. So, yeah, that's my choice. Eagles, who came second overall. I'm very hopeful. Very, very hopeful the Cowboys can stop them from making the playoffs. That could be worth 14 points.
We have mentioned this before, but Philadelphia is a city that greases up the lampposts to make sure people can't climb them. All right, we'll just move on. Right, wrapped up then. My three to get better were the Bears, the Saints, and the Commanders. Dan's three to get better were the Falcons, the Lions, and the Steelers. And Dave's were the Broncos, the Browns, and the Titans, all to get better. And to get worse, I've gone with the Bucks, Dan's gone with the Vikings, and Dave's gone with the Philadelphia Eagles. So what'll happen is we'll keep you up to date with how each of them are going over the course of the season, and whether we think that they're going to achieve points or drop points, and that'll just be a little touch point for us. If you want to play this and you want the rules, just drop us a line on social media. We're available. Just search for Utter Punts Podcast on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. Elon Musk's completely... I nearly dropped another F-bomb. Let's move on. Or on Instagram, which is probably the best place to get us, because we do love Instagram, because it's a much more friendly environment. But you can get in touch with us on either. Would be lovely to hear from you. Right.
I quite like X.
Yeah. Do you? Have you decided to make an X account?
Being contrary, isn't he?
Oh, is he? Contrary Dave.
I never joined Twitter, but it's not Twitter anymore. Right. So I might join.
Look, boys, we are rapidly. We've already hugely overspent on time. Hugely. So. We are going to rattle through the predictions here for the first weekend, and we'll get into proper reviews for next weekend. We will start with tonight's game, which, I mean, seems a little bit daft. So literally a sentence on this evening's game, which is the Lions at the Chiefs. We'll start with you, Dan.
I don't care who's injured. Mahomes is playing, and the Chiefs are at Arrowhead, so they'll win. Can I give you a couple of mega Mahomes stats quickly?
Yeah, but really quickly.
Okay, so Mahomes, when losing by 10 points, Mahomes is 13-9 in his career. Which means even if you're 10 points ahead, you're the
still
underdog
getting beaten,
in the underdog. No quarterback in the history of the game has had a better record.
Yeah.
And also, of his 227 touchdown passes that he's thrown in his career, 211 of them, Travis Kelce's been on the field for. So he might be a miss, but I still back Andy Reid and Mahomes at home. Chiefs to me.
Good stuff, Dave.
I'll go with Chiefs. Basically, probably to cover as well. But what I would say is this: I think Jahmyr Gibbs. I disagree with Dan. I think because they took him at 12 overall, they're going to make use of him. They're going to try and give him the ball. I think they're going to throw to him out of the backfield. I think they're going to let him run on the goal line. I think they're going to try and really display him tonight. So if you're looking for a little bet to throw on, have a look at Jahmyr Gibbs to get 2 touchdowns at any time.
He's in Dave's fantasy.
I think that's good value tonight.
What's really interesting is that we had a production meeting, and the production meeting says, please don't put the bets in the previews, and we'll do them afterwards. And Dave's just completely thrown that out the window. No, don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that.
Because it's the only Thursday night game that we're doing.
Absolutely not. No.
Thursday.
No. The rules were the rules. They're not there to be broken. They're there to be adhered to.
Okay, fine.
I'm also going with the Chiefs.
Take it back.
I can't see that going any other way.
be a lot of points.
Also,
though.
your version of
two
one
touchdowns.
sentence is
sorry.
ridiculous. Right. Stop. Moving on. 49ers at Steelers, Sunday. Sky Sports. Who's going first? Dave, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I actually fancy the Steelers. I think they've had all off-season to prepare for the 49ers, whilst the 49ers have had a terrible off-season with all the nonsense going on with Bose. A little bit, okay, they've got the deal over the line now, but I genuinely do think the Steelers are going to be good this year. And yeah, I'd go with the Steelers.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I've picked the Steelers at home. I think they're ready. I think they're ready to come out. I think the Niners will get better. They started last year by losing to the Bears, didn't they? So I think they will get better. I think McCaffrey will have a good game, but I think watch this Steelers defense. It's going to be electric.
I'm going to say something completely left field here because essentially, we keep a track of who we've picked, and me making a decision is not going to change that. I think Christian McCaffrey has it in him to actually be chosen as the MVP this season. Not Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's got it in him to be chosen as the league's MVP this season. Now, that's almost unheard of in the modern age. It always goes to a quarterback. But I've just got this feeling. This is a man that did 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, and 100 catches last. If he can do that again this season and add 5%, there'll be nobody in the league to touch him.
If he plays 17 games, he's the best offensive weapon in the game.
Correct.
There's no question.
In which case, I think he could do that. And that means, because of CMC, I'm going with the Niners.
I love it. I hope you're right.
I'm going with the Niners. Right, load of...
my second choice for a regression, in the stock.
Really?
Yeah.
Niners going backwards?
I just think that for Brock Purdy, he had his little Indian summer, but he was basically, the system made it as easy as possible for him. I think that playoff game where he got injured, what you actually saw was what happens when people game plan for Brock Purdy, which is they just got into his face before he could get rid of it, and he injured himself on the helmet. I think he's going to find it a lot more difficult. I would not be surprised to see him end up switching towards Sam Darnold at some point. And in all honesty, I think that next year, if they actually still have Kyle Shanahan in charge, then I can see them picking up Kirk Cousins in free agency finally.
Good stuff. Right, moving on. Again, time just absolutely kicking our backsides here. So the next one up is the Dolphins at the Chargers. This is a tighter one than I would have thought. This is probably the tightest game of the whole weekend, isn't it, Dan?
It's a playoff game, isn't it? I mean, I can see this game in January, can't you? If the Dolphins stay fit, the Dolphins with Tua last year were incredible, but then teams did catch up to them before he got injured. And of course, he's had jiu-jitsu now, so he won't get injured again.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is renowned for solving concussion problems. That is renowned.
This is why I don't talk about the off-season, because it's just boring. But this is a great game. There's going to be lots of points in this game, but I love the Chargers this year. If they can just stay on the field, the Chargers, I think they're the best roster in the NFL. And I fancy them to beat the Chiefs in the AFC West this year. So I'm going to pick them at home because they surely haven't got any injuries going into this. Herbert could be the MVP for me. He'd be my outside pick. I think they're monsters, the Chargers, this year. And I think finally it comes together. And they probably have too much for Miami, although I do think Miami will have a good year.
Who's saying hello?
It's the voice of Bill Belichick in the background going, it wasn't me.
I was hoping that Keno's mum had just sort of popped in and said hi.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Oh, that's slightly disappointing. I'm going Chargers here.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, did you not?
Your end?
No, don't think so. Producer Andy heard it as well. It wasn't here, I'm sure. I'm going the Chargers here for the same reasons. I just think at home that's enough of a difference between the two of them. Dave, what do you make of this game?
I don't want to be just going contrary to Dan all the time, but in all honesty, I think their most valuable signing this offseason was Fangio at DC, who can actually run a 4-3 shell defense properly and actually make it aggressive as well. I think that there's a couple of young coaches who have their first years last year who have picked up good experienced DCs for the very purpose of training their offense and getting them different looks in training, which will make them better. I'm going to take the Dolphins. I think they're going to be a very good team this year. And Mike McDaniels is quickly becoming my second favourite coach in the NFL. Tomlin's my favourite, you know that.
Fair enough. Good. So you've gone Dolphins. We've two gone Chargers. Good. Should we just skip the next one? We don't have to talk about Cowboys at Giants at all, do we? No.
Cowboys,
The most
just move on.
watched game in America.
Yeah, and you can understand why, but this is the kind of game that I think, as a Giants fan, I would like 6 or 7 weeks into the season, not game one. And
I could catch him cold.
Yeah.
And
the problem
you know
is, I think the opposite is likely to happen here, where the Giants are more likely to get caught cold by a Cowboys team that actually look better on paper this season than they did last.
I don't know if the Cowboys are much better this year than last year. I think it depends down to the quarterback, doesn't it? But the problem I'd have with the Giants is that they've not beat Dak Prescott in 10 attempts. So they're 0-10 against Prescott in these games, at home and away. So it makes it difficult. The Cowboys are I still think they're a show pony. I'll be dead honest. The defense looks really good. Okay. I think the defense will be hard to beat. Okay. I think their offense is still terrible. I think the offensive line is not what it was. I think they're going down to Tony Pollard. They're trusting that he is as the main running back, what he was as the second running back. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. They still really haven't got another wide receiver, and they've let Dalton Schultz go with the tight end, and they've obviously drafted another tight end, but he's injured. They have drafted, they've signed Brandon Cooks. I don't like it. The Cowboys are definitely beatable, but they'll beat the Giants. Which is what
Yeah,
I think the biggest thing that happened to the Cowboys at the end of last season was the fact that Mike McCarthy decided he's going to be calling plays again for the first time since his last season in Green Bay. So if anyone wanted to work out how to beat this current lot of Cowboys, I guarantee McCarthy's not dusted off and written a new playbook. He's dusted off whatever was in his back pocket from the Packers days. It won't take long for people to work them out. I think they will end up struggling down the line, but I do think what they've actually done is just try to build everything in a way where they can play and beat the Eagles. Yeah. Which I'm not sure that's the best idea. You've got 17 games to play, not just 2. But best of luck to him. I hope it beat the Eagles because I hate the Eagles.
So you're picking, Dave?
They're not playing the Eagles this week.
Yeah, I already picked right at the start. Cowboys to beat the Giants off the bat.
Which is good because that means that I don't have to do what my head is saying. I can do what my heart is saying and pick the Giants to beat the Cowboys. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. Right, late game Sunday into Monday is the Cowboys Giants, right? So that means the Monday night football game is Bills at Jets. Mm-hmm. Ooh, it is a tasty old affair. Obviously, interest sky high with the Jets at the minute because of Hard Knocks, because that's been available, because of Aaron Rodgers' trade, because they look better than they did last season. But I'm not sure it's quite that straightforward when you run into Josh Allen and the Bills.
It was for them last year. Zach Wilson beat the Bills and as the Jets quarterback, and the Jets gave the Bills fits last year. They weren't on the same offense when they played them, and they actually weren't the same team after they'd played them because they're the team that injured, or slightly injured, Josh Allen. They never quite recovered from. They lost all their dominance. I think the Bills have been down talked a bit this offseason. I think because there's been a lot of hype around the Dolphins, a lot of hype around the Jets, certainly. I can't remember the fourth team in that division now, but I think it's unfair. I think the Bills have got their defense back. They're all fit. They're all healthy. Players like Tre'Davious White, players like Matt Milano, players like Jordan Poyer on the back end. They've got Greg Rousseau up front. They've got Von Miller to come back in. The Bills will be fine. But I'm a bit of a Jets homer, as you know. And if the Jets could beat them with Zach Wilson, then they're sure as hell going to beat them with Aaron Rodgers. Jets for me.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm taking the Jets as well.
Oof,
for me, the big issue, again, it's a psychological thing. I think they lost Brian DeBoer last season. He didn't go back great with the current offensive coordinator. Diggs, at one point, was very unhappy. He says that's all over now. There's some dispute about that with, I think it was Stephen A. Smith coming out and saying that he still wants to be traded. But again, Diggs shot that down. But if Stephen Diggs is unhappy, he doesn't really hold back. But he was voted a captain this year. So I'm intrigued to see which Diggs turns up because Stephen Diggs on fire he's a hell of a player.
Some second players this week, though, Dave, isn't it? With Sauce and DJ Reed.
Yeah, it's massive.
I mean, I think they can take Diggs out the game, and then who else do the Bills go to?
Davis.
That's what I mean.
On his in routes. I mean, you know.
So this will be a low-scoring game.
It's a tricky one, but
it'll be very tight. I
do think that if the
13-10.
Bills win, then they're set up very nicely for a cracking season again. But I just think that Rodgers will have that little bit of mental strength, which might well help them through it, and see them to a victory this weekend. But I do think the Bills are going to be good this year. I think all 4 teams in the division are going to be half decent this year.
There's only 3 teams in the division.
I remember.
There's only 3 teams in the division.
I'm going to go Jets here before you two come to blows.
The Buffalo Bill Belichick's then, is that what it is?
the artists formerly known as Good.
Yeah. I'm going to go Jets as well. I think just the romance of it. I think get carried away with the narrative as I am. Right. So one of the new things that we're going to do on Utter Punts this season is we're actually going to look ahead to the Sunday games, the Monday game, and the following Thursday, because we're actually going to release on a Thursday night. So you're going to get your preview for the following Thursday and not for the night that it's released. We will try and just sort of make a little passing comment on it, as we did at the beginning of these previews, but actually your main preview is going to be the following Thursday game, which works out to be Vikings at Eagles, which is the last thing that we're going to do before we hear the 2-minute warning, which is coming up in the not too distant future. So
2 minutes ago.
Dave, do you want to kick us off for Vikings at Eagles?
I don't think he wants the game to kick off, to be honest.
No. Okay, right. The Vikings do not do very, very well in Philadelphia. That's not going to change this year. Let the Eagles fans grease up their lampposts. Let them enjoy themselves. It might well end up being your last victory for a few weeks, but I'm pretty sure you will beat us, because I'm pretty sure that Kirk is probably peeing himself right now thinking about the trip. So, yeah. Enjoy yourselves, Eagles. I hate you. Carry on.
Okay. Dan, can we have something a little bit more measured and less emotional?
I just don't see what the Vikings do better than the Eagles, really. So, defensive line, offensive line, run game, pass game, secondary, linebacker play, coverage, pass pressure, special teams, field goal kicker, wind in the stadium, seat colour, hot dog choice.
Whoa. We've got a better long snapper. We had a Pro Bowl long snapper last year. Have you know?
You also had Kirk Cousins, and you've got him again this year. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer, and this is a lumper. This get the Eagles in everything for me.
What's really interesting here is it's got the added narrative now that that Dan's picked the Vikings to be worse this season, and Dave's picked the Eagles to be worse this season, and yet the pick that they've both made is the Eagles. I can see why you've done that.
The Eagles have got further to fall, my friend, and I didn't factor the Vikings being into my calculations.
I am also going Eagles for exactly the same reason that you boys have suggested. I just can't see what the Vikings do better, and that moustache needs absolutely smashing into the ground. So if we can put 20 or 30 points on Kirk Cousins just for that heinous crime against faces, that would be absolutely great.
Look, I know that we said we were going to preview next week's Thursday game, but can we jump straight to the bets for this weekend? Because it's far more interesting than talking about the Eagles beating the Vikings. And then Bell's gone and taken away any chance of fate being tempted by saying he feels in his bones that the Vikings are going to win. Yeah. So it's not going to happen now. You don't have to reverse psychology on the universe, do you, Andy? So can we move on to the bets?
Yes, let's do that. But if we can be quick, because we're already well over an hour on this podcast, and it was supposed to be 45 minutes.
So I'll quickly nail mine out, and then Dan can go into his.
Yeah, go on. Hit me up.
So what I've got is so this show is going to be a bit different. Dan and I are going to be telling you to spend a $5 each week. We're going to keep a running total as to who's been a more effective tipster for you as the season goes on, because we think it's much more fun than when me and Dan are in competition with each other. And as per usual, Liam will be picking a side, and that will be his bankroll for this season as well. So this week, what my little bet is, I would like you to do at any time touchdown scorers and go with TJ Hockenson, Richardson of the Colts, and Derrick Henry in a treble, and that will be £11.37 to 1. And put £2 on that for me, please, out of my stake.
Just to clarify, if you're picking Richardson as the quarterback, it won't be a touchdown he throws. It'll have to be one that he runs or catches. Just for people that don't know the difference.
Good point, well made. But yes, I did know that. Yeah.
Known
Just
many a place to celebrate.
Just £2 out of your 5 on that.
Well, I mean, is it a £5 a week, or we have to try and keep a bankroll, right? So I was being prudent, but yeah, I mean, like, if it's a £5 a week, throw your £5 on it. That'll be pretty decent. That'll be 50 quid, and it's only a £5.
All right, good. I was just checking that you weren't like sort of 20% confident of your bets.
No. I have a rule slightly wrong in my head. Sorry, now.
Good.
I'm going fairly easy start. So I've got the in a double, the Steelers plus 8 points at home against the 49ers, and Atlanta to score over 19.5 points in their game against Carolina, and that double pays just over even money 1.2. So you'd get about your 11 quid back from your 5.
Decisions.
You get that spending £1 on mine.
What's the returns for yours, Dave?
So mine's 11.37 to 1. So if you have got a £5 on it, then you're looking at just over 60 quid back, which including your save, which will be nice.
Which, considering it's the first one of the season, is far too long for me, so I'm going with Dan. I'm going with Dan just because I feel like it might be more likely to happen and not tossing my £5.
Probably 11 times more likely to happen.
Right, cool. Right, I think we're going to restart the train, but we're not doing that this week. So those of you remember the spectacular derailment last season, we're hoping that it doesn't. Yeah, we're hoping that it doesn't happen this season. There is the 2-minute hooter, which means that we've just about got enough time to do our utter punts of the week. Can I go first?
Yeah,
I'm going to pick myself.
Oh, it's unfair.
No,
disagree.
I'm picking me for the 36 intro attempts and the camera switching off. Actually, no. I am reneging on that. I'm not picking me at all. I am picking Andy Bell. That's exactly what I'm doing. Thanks, Dan. I am picking the producer of this epic that said, if we're in for the whole season, and then misses the first fucking show. I am picking producer Andy Bell as being the absolute punt of the week. That's what I'm picking. I'm here, he says. Where? I can't see you. In the northeast, playing in the woods with your nieces. Not here, are you? Not enjoying yourself with us? No. Decided to go home for mum's cooking and stotties. That's what you've gone for, bacon stotties over utter punts, and I'm not having it. Utter punt of the week. Dan?
What we do know about Bell is that when his partner is away, she's clearly the talent in the organisation, isn't she? Because whenever he's away, he falls to bits. So
that's very true. He's had to go home to his mum.
What we need is his partner's travel schedule for the next 12 months. I was going to pick Kirk Cousins because I watched quarterback and he's an idiot, and he ruined one of the greatest comebacks, the greatest comeback in history by sort of dramatically pausing Tom. I'm going to need a minute. Idiot. But I'm going to go for Jerry Jones, and I'm going to go for Jerry Jones for a simple reason. It's poor management. I cannot stand bad management, right? So they trade for Trey Lance, okay? And then in the interview afterwards, they sort of said, well, who knew? Well, I didn't tell nobody. We just wanted to move, right? So he then puts Mike McCarthy in a really bad position for no reason at all.
Yeah.
Because Mike McCarthy going, oh, so I've got your backup quarterback, have I? He clearly did know about it. Why is Jerry Jones still just trying to make headlines for the Cowboys? Because news has been a bit quiet. Go away.
I think Jerry Jones was picked more times last season on Utter Punts as punt of the week
really annoying.
Than any other person. And we've started this season exactly the same way. Yeah. Go on, get in there. Dave, come on.
Do you know what's even worse? My off-season Utter Punt is Jim Irsay over Colts. So I think came second last year.
Wow.
Just because how do you basically manage to take your franchise running back and alienate him in 2 years? I don't get it. He's a second-round pick. He was picked number 41 overall. Jonathan Taylor, in his first season in the league, was the best running back in the league. He got injured last year. He wasn't quite as efficient, and I get that. But the O-line was a disaster for the Colts last year. This year, you've got a running quarterback coming in, and what he could do with in order to help him out is the best running back in the league. Instead, Jim Irsay manages to have a one-to-one with Taylor, and immediately after that, Taylor requested a trade. So, like, to me, it's just one of those where
that went well.
Jim Irsay, and what I've written down here is that Jim Irsay, shut up, you want to be the next Jerry Jones, and Like, I feel that the theme is complete there.
I absolutely love it. Dave, thank you for your time this evening. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Nothing. Pleasure. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good to
We
be back.
will see you next week on Utter Punts, where we will give you a full review of the weekend's games, and we cannot wait. Glad to be back. See you later. Bye, Dave.
Take care. Bye-bye.